Friends, this is Reverend Dr. Michael R. Vanderpool, intuitive astrologer or psychic astrologer. I've got 20 documented public predictions posted on my website at www.universalstars.net under the documented predictions section. So this is the chart on Georgia that we use with Magi astrology. Per what the Magi Society teaches. I don't know the exact signing time, but it's not going to matter so much because I'm using a standard time when we don't know the exact time for 1 p.m. on March 31st, 1991. I've used this chart and this time and date very successfully for predictions that have proven accurate on Georgia, which I published in January 2017 for the great possibility or probability of war that summer of 2017 at that time, which was ahead also, as well as great disaster. The natural disaster that did take place was the epic forest fires in Georgia, which were going in at least 11 different areas according to netgazzetti.ge. So here's the chart. The nice news is, for now, that at the moment, Georgia actually has what in Magi, that's M-A-G-I astrology, and this is the software from the Magi Society. They have this, which is Jupiter transiting trine, the most dynamic positive angle to the natal astro body Chiron, here where my cursor is, and I'll point this out with my finger. Right there is Chiron. So transiting Jupiter, the transiting planets are in red. All the positive linkages or positive aspects in transit or angles to natal planets are in green. And in this case, it's 120 degrees, the most positive dynamic angle between two planets. And this is Jupiter transiting Jupiter, applying trine to natal Chiron. Which happens to be at the moment in the nation of Georgian Magi astro chart or astrology chart at 26.6 degrees Cancer, and that transiting Jupiter at the moment is at 25.5 degrees Scorpio. So that's a Cinderella transit, and as I look here to see that's going to be this Cinderella transit is on Georgia until August 23rd, 2018, and that's significant to me as an astrologer, also a journalist here who has addressed the governments of Europe, the United States, and Georgia in a question and comments as a journalist on the Bucharest, Georgia NATO topic about a month or so ago, in my stating that these noble partner multinational military exercises that are taking place in Georgia right now are the best thing for Georgia and Georgia's defense and security. There are 13 nations here in representation and or practice in those exercises right now. Most of those nations have some troops here working together in those military exercises. So that is a Cinderella transit that I'm pointing out here that goes on until August 23rd, and it's significant that the multinational military exercises that are going on until the 15th of August. As far as I know, at least that's the last media day. Now, on the other hand, I had pointed out previous in the published map that there is an enemies around every corner transit, which is Mars transiting Mars, applying square to natal Chiron, and that's when war almost broke out here in summer 2017. So what we have happening now is that isn't in play yet. But if I move forward a little bit here, looks like moving forward into search for that when that may be starting. I'm going on out into It's actually transiting Chiron, applying square to natal Mars. That's the enemies around every corner transit. I'm at the 18th of August, and it looks like it's going to be going on until the presidential elections, the day after the presidential elections, which is October 29, 2018. So again, that is the Chiron square Mars in the Georgian chart. I'm going to go back to the 17th. I'm using a time of 5 a.m. at the moment. And it's not showing. I'm going to kick it up to 5 p.m. and it's still not there. So I'm going to assume that sometime on the 18th, maybe the 17th, but definitely on the 18th, this enemies around every corner transit, which is transiting Chiron, applying square to natal Mars. And this is Western astrology. Specifically, it's the Astrodyne's website. They've changed the name of the transit now to a different name, something that has more likely to do with excessive energy or something like this. But it's originally named Enemies Around Every Corner Transit, which even in their description to date, Astrodyne's, the Swiss-American astrology site out of Switzerland, still, even in the description of this Western astrology transit, this is not Magi astrology in this particular case, even in their description of this transit, it is still enemies around every corner. So this is provocations, this is being provoked, this is being provocative, this is maybe being the subject to enemy intrigues or enemy action. So that, again, is starting technically around the 18th, if not the 17th, in terms of the energy coming in and being in effect. Technically, it is there absolutely on the 18th for sure of August 2018 on the Georgian Magi astro chart, or most of you have known this if you're into astrology as the natal chart. This would be the natal chart of Magi astrology, is called the astro chart because it's Magi astrology. So this energy is in play on the country of Georgia from August 17 or 18 all the way into the day after the presidential election, and in Magi astrology we give it 3 days after the peak of any transit for the energy to still be able to be natalized, thus also be still strongly in effect. That's a peak. So, around the exact day after the presidential election in Georgia, October 29, it'd be 30, and then let's go in and see what October has in terms of, if there's I think there's a 31st there. Let me confirm that. And there is. So it's going to be in effect, 30, 31. So after the 1st of November, that's in play. So, but I want to point out that particular enemies around every corner transit returns in December on Georgia. And there it is. I'm looking right now at December 18. I'm going to back it up to, I'm going to see if it's there on the 9th. And it is there on the 9th. I'm going to go back to the 7th. And it's not there on the 7th of December, but it comes in on the 8th, if not the 7th, but on the 8th without doing more checking here for the exact time. So around the 7th or 8th, the 8th for sure, enemies around every corner transit is there on the country of Georgia. And that particular enemies around every corner transit, and that's from Western astrology, is in play until the 18th of January 2019, but we put another 3 days on that for the peak energy to still be in effect. In other words, the 3-day orb for that to be able to still be natalized. So it's still strong energy and it's still in effect. The unfortunate thing is that at this date, which is the December 8th of 2018, you've got what is HK there in Aquarius at 18.3 degrees Aquarius, that HK, and I'll go ahead and point that out. This is transiting midpoint of Saturn Chiron, applying quincunx. Every quincunx here is blue in these Magi astrology. For the astrogeometry software from the Magi Society identifies quincunx as blue. So, and these broken lines are separating. The red are stress transits, either oppositions or squares. So you've got Saturn Chiron midpoint here where my finger is in Aquarius. It's HK, Saturn Chiron midpoint transit, applying quincunx to natal Chiron. Now that is a harsh heartbreak. We judge it harsh because it's at an angle of 150 degrees. And that's already in play on December 8th. Now, if I go back to December 7, it's still in play. December 6, it's still in play. December 5, it's not in play. So around December 5 or December 6, for sure December 6, that transit of Saturn Chiron applying quincunx to midpoint, applying quincunx to natal Chiron is in effect. And that is going on until and lasting until, as you can see here, January 20. So this period of time exactly, and most especially, is a very a big time of concern for the country of Georgia, for the Georgian people, in terms of my astrological analysis, because I've been right before 2 times over last summer. Putin and Assad, Russia's President Putin, Syria's President Assad, are to arrive to South Ossetia on September 20th to recognize the so-called independence of South Ossetia. This would be the enemies around every corner transit in play that I pointed out earlier, which starts around August 18, at least until the day after the presidential elections in Georgia, which is October 29. Here that enemies around every corner transit is again. You see the cursor here transiting Chiron square natal Mars. There you see here that this harsh midpoint heartbreak transit, that's HKI for Saturn Chiron quincunx natal Chiron, is lasting until January 20, 2019. Now, to get into this enemies around every corner transit, approximately the same timing of January 18, 2019 for the peak on that. So approximately the harsh heartbreak transit and the enemies around every corner transits are running within a day or two of each other at the same time. From approximately December 6, 7, 8, 9, definitely in there on the 8th and the 9th in terms of the energy in play, until around the 22nd, 23rd, depending on how you want to use Western astrology or Magi astrology for the 3-day orb on that. Western astrology is going to consider it to be a 5-day orb. So basically from the second week of December until the third week of till the end of the third week of January, this enemies around every corner transit and harsh heartbreak transit, which happens to be a Saturn Chiron midpoint transit at the harsh angle of 150 degrees to natal Chiron, is in play on Georgia. Now, this is the same type of energy that was in play, the exact same energy that was in play during the summer 2017, in which I was able to accurately predict the great probability or possibility of war, which that is an extremely accurate prediction that is proven correct summer 2017 in Georgia. And then also could be, I said, great natural disaster, which also proved correct because the last part of the transit with these types of transits in the summer of 2017 in Georgia resulted in forest fires raging on for at least a couple of weeks in 11 different areas. So I'll add more information later as we go, but for now, this is a quick visual on the astrology on the country of Georgia. This is the exact time that I'm using. The exact time won't matter in Magi astrology in this particular type of instance. In fact, I can even change the time zone here to 4 GMT, -4 GMT, and it's not going to change it that much. For example, that just changed the enemies around every corner transit by 1 day, for example, in January. So it's not going to change it because Magi astrology is not that dependent on exact birth time, so to speak. So more later. This is Michael Vanderpool, intuitive or psychic astrologer. 20 documented public predictions proven correct later after they were published, all the way back since 2007 when I predicted the war on Israel, its start and its finish. The finish of that war, down to the date accurate, down to the day accurate because they signed in signatories on August 1st, 2007 for a ceasefire or peace agreement. Have a good day, friends. Again, my website is www.universalstars.net. There you can see the documented accurate predictions.